It is Tuesday, October 11th, 10 after 11 in the morning, and I'm sitting in the very front seat of an Aeroline bus that's going from Penang to Kuala Lumpur. It left from Penang at 8:30 this morning, so we've been on the road for 2.5 hours. It's supposed to be, I guess we're halfway there. Yeah, that's the halfway point. It's a 5-hour trip, and it's dropping me off at the Chorus Hotel in Kuala Lumpur. And someone that I've got to know through my YouTube channel has offered to come pick me up at the Chorus Hotel and take me to my hostel. So that I'm looking forward to that. Save me a lot of strained back muscles and sweat and tears as I carry my heavy load. Yeah, it's very nice of him to make the offer. And we've been in communication again, like a James Bond scenario, timing everything, figuring out exactly where to meet and what comes next. And I'm walking into a fairly unusual situation. I'm not sure what's going to happen, because the main reason I'm going to Kuala Lumpur is because before the pandemic hit, I'd left a lot of things in storage. We're looking at some nice scenery, by the way. I'll flip the GoPro around just to show you some of what I'm looking at. My front seat on the bus comes with this view. I can look right out the front windshield. So whenever there's any hills nearby, anything interesting, I get a front row seat. It's kind of like I'm sitting in my own travel theater. You know, I have a perfect view of the entire world as we're going by, even off to the sides. There's huge windows all around. So you couldn't ask for anything better than this. I was originally sitting in this seat back there, the single seat on the left. I booked that one because at that time, I think it was the only seat available. But when I got on the bus and took my seat and we left, these two seats at the very front were empty. Nobody sat here. And the reason they don't sit here is because with the windshield right here, if the sun is lower in the sky, it just gets blasted by the sun. And I guess it could be quite hot sitting here. And for most of the Malaysians, this is a routine journey for them. They don't care about the view. They just want to get in their seat and, get on their phone or take a nap, something like that. They're not looking out the window like I am. So for them, sitting here in the hot sun is not worth the view. But for me, very much is. Yeah, we've been going up and down much more than I expected. My ears have been popping. There's another limestone outcropping coming up. Look at that. Quite large cliffs off to the right. And some directly ahead. Yeah, at the beginning of this trip, I was shooting a video for Planet Doug, and it was also turning into a bit of a story time journal video because I was telling stories about all the effort I had to go through to get to the bus station just to get on this bus. I had all my usual adventures. And while I was talking, I commented that the scenery between Penang and Kuala Lumpur is not really that interesting. And YouTubers will tend to focus on the 1 or 2 minutes of nice scenery and stick that in their video, and you get the impression that the scenery is nicer than it really is. But so far, it appears I had no idea what I was talking about, because on this ride, maybe it's the magic of the Aeroline bus. On this ride, the scenery has been quite nice and surprisingly dramatic. Very mountainous, curving highway going up and down. It's worth it to sit at the front to get the views. Very nice views. Normally I wouldn't have to tilt down like this to get the view, but we're going down a hill, so the whole bus is on an angle, and I have to do this to look up at the top of the mountains. Well, yeah, as I was saying, I have to go to Kuala Lumpur because before the pandemic, I stored my touring bicycle, camping equipment, photography lenses, and on and on and on, a whole bunch of stuff I put in storage there, intending to go to Myanmar for 2 months, perhaps, and then return to Kuala Lumpur, pick up my bike, and then continue on, perhaps cycling. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep on, traveling by bicycle or not. But I stored my bicycle there, intending to be back in 2 months, and that was nearly 3 years ago. And it's all still there in storage. And in the meantime, I left everything there because the hostel where I was staying is quite a casual place, and they had an upper loft, like a big empty open area, which is kind of meant for storage, and some of the staff would sleep up there on the floor. And I got to know the owner fairly well, and when I left, even before that, I went on trips to different places, and I stored my bike and gear in that same place up in the loft. And the owner of the hostel, because I stay there all the time, didn't charge me storage fees. It wasn't like a secure lockup or anything like that. It's just, if you want to put your stuff here, you can leave it here, but it's at your own risk. We're not responsible for it, and therefore, I didn't have to pay them for the storage. But then complications to do with the pandemic and then world events, the owner of the hostel had to return home and left Malaysia completely. And I understood that this person was the owner of the hostel, but maybe she wasn't, because when she left, she kind of gave the place up, and another person took over the hostel. And I didn't know who this person was, and this person wanted to take my stuff and stuff belonging to some other backpackers. I guess they'd left their backpacks there in storage, just as I had, and I guess there was some other stuff scattered around that people had left, and he wanted to take all of that, consolidate it, put it into one room where he could lock the door, and then charge a fee, storage fee, from that point on. So whenever he is in charge of the hostel, I have to pay a storage fee. But then when the friend of mine, she did at one point come back to Malaysia, took over, and then I didn't have to pay storage anymore, but then she had to leave again. And as soon as she left and this other guy took over, then suddenly I'm paying a storage fee again. And this new manager, who I don't know, is one of these people that doesn't communicate. He has 3 words in his vocabulary: no, yes, and okay. And he won't even write out okay as a word. It's just the letters okay. And that's all he will ever say. And I'm a bit more verbose than that. So making all these arrangements, keeping my stuff there, sending him money as a fee to pay for the storage, communicating with him about me coming back, when I'm coming back. Will he have a room available when I come back? I have all these things I need to talk to him about. And he just basically never replies except for no, yes, and okay. And most of the time, I have no idea what he's saying yes to, or what he's saying no to, or okay to. I might have 5 questions in one message, and he will just say okay. Doesn't reply, doesn't give information, doesn't respond in any way. So, I think I have a room there. I've tried very, very hard to tell him very clearly, I'm coming back at this date on this time, and I would like to stay at the hostel. And I don't know though. I'm going to get picked up where this bus drops me off, and a friend of mine is going to drive me to the hostel, and I will show up, and there won't be anybody there because this man doesn't actually manage the place from inside the hostel. He manages it from a nearby business, some sort of photocopy business, I think. So I have to go to this photocopy shop, find this man that I've never met, have no idea what he looks like, and then he, I guess, will unlock the door and let me in, and then we can make arrangements. I don't know. I have no idea what situation I'm walking into when I get to Kuala Lumpur. Yeah, that ought to be pretty funny. I woke up pretty early this morning. I set an alarm for 5 a.m. The bus was leaving at 8:30, so technically I did not have to wake up so early, but I wake up at 5 a.m. most mornings anyway, and I just wanted to set the alarm just in case I slept in. But then I ended up opening my eyes and waking up fully at 4 a.m., and I decided to just get out of bed. And I did that because yesterday I had a really full day. I was intending to set aside a chunk of the day for packing and organizing for this trip to Kuala Lumpur. But then I went out for the day, and I went out much longer and did much more walking than I expected to do. And by the time I got back to the Airbnb, I was exhausted. And I had to do the usual things. I shot a whole bunch of video. I had to copy the video to external hard drives. I had to charge up batteries. I had to do all my usual stuff. And that took me, before I blinked my eyes, it was 9 o'clock at night. And I still hadn't packed anything. And I needed to do some fairly careful packing because I'm carrying a lot of extra gear right now. And I'll be busy consolidating when I'm in Kuala Lumpur. And I was going to do all that yesterday in advance, but as I said, I'd been so busy during the day that I didn't bother. So I left all my packing for the morning. So I figured, getting up at 4 or 5 a.m., I needed a couple hours to pack and organize before I even left to go get this bus. So I did actually, when I woke up this morning, I was just about to turn on a camera and record this kind of a video journal where I'm just telling stories about my days. But I looked at my watch and I thought, oh, don't do it, because I might get caught up in it. And if I spend an hour talking, I'm going to run out of time. I'll lose track of time, and then I'll really be rushing and making mistakes as I try to get to the bus. So I didn't record any kind of a video journal this morning. I didn't even write in my journal at all, which I normally do. However, if I had recorded a journal this morning at 4 in the morning, I would have told you about my day, my last day in Penang. I shot video of that whole day, so it's going to be on the Planet Doug channel eventually, but it's going to take a little while before I can get to it, like finish up all the videos from Penang and edit this one. So yeah, yesterday, my last day in Penang, was a pretty good day. I spent most of the morning back at the Airbnb, actually, again, working on YouTube videos. A lot of time involved in doing that. But then what I wanted to do was go down to Armenian Street in particular in Georgetown, in the World Heritage Site. There's one street called Armenian Street, named after the Armenians who used to live there. There was a community of Armenian traders and shopkeepers, and running a lot of businesses there. In the 18th century, 19th century, I guess. I don't know if any of them are left, but this street was named after the Armenian community that was based in Georgetown. And today it's a very scenic, very active street for tourists, full of all kinds of cafes and coffee shops and smoothie shops and souvenir shops, and you can rent those bicycles, like tricycles, that are all decorated with flowers and colorful lights and music playing, and the man will pedal the bike for you. You sit on the seats at the front, and as a tourist, it's just one of those things you do, and they drive you around. It's a tourist street, and I hadn't gone up and down it on this trip. So I was going to go there with my video camera, walk the length of Armenian Street, and try some snacks and hang out. And that was going to be my final event for Penang. But on my way there, as often happens, I got distracted, and I came across another short street, which is very well known to visitors. And I had even known about it. I'd looked into this street before, read about the history of it, called Keng Kui, but I think it's also just called the Penang Road. And on Penang Road, you find a scattering of the Penang famous places, places that get so well known for their dish that they adopt, they become the place to go to get that dish, and they call themselves, the famous whatever. And there were two places there that are known as famous chendol places, where you can get high quality, chendol that people love. They're known for making very good chendol. And you could also get, there's also the Penang Road famous laksa place. And by the time I finished walking down the length of the street, I tried both of them. There was like a really famous chendol place at the beginning, had like 10 people waiting in line, and right across the road from it was a Nonya chendol place, open since 1953, I think. I spoke to the woman briefly, and she was the third generation master of chendol. I asked her whether they had a secret recipe for their chendol, and she said, yeah, that they did. And her grandmother had started this, stall selling high quality chendol, and then her mother took it over, and now she, the daughter and granddaughter, now she's running it, and she has the secret recipe for their famous chendol. And I got it from her. I got mine from her, not from the busy one. And at the beginning, I was quite confused because I got ice kacang mixed up with chendol in my head. I got them switched. I thought they were all the same thing, and I forgot that they're different things, and I couldn't remember the name of one or the other. And I got the chendol, which is like a coconut milk with like green rice noodles. They're green for some reason. Now that I think about it, I don't know why they're green, but they're green. And you get something else in them. I've already forgotten. Anyway, it's very good. Ice. I mean, actually you get a lot of shaved ice and these green noodles and other things on top, but I've forgotten what the ingredients are. But then when the ice kacang or kachang means peanuts, so that you get a lot of more unusual things, maybe peanuts. Brown, like baked beans. That's what was in the chendol. The other ingredient, like pork and beans, that I know from Canada. I used to love pork and beans as a kid. Baked beans, that is in the chendol. It's one of the key ingredients. And then with the ice kacang, you get the peanuts, and you get kind of green, like jelly-like things, almost like candy. They put all kinds of interesting things in there. But I had the chendol, and then I walked down the alleyway. It was raining a lot that whole time I was there, so it wasn't the best time to be there, but it wasn't raining too heavily, so it was still okay. And then I found this laksa place, and I kind of knew that before I left Penang, I had to have laksa and chendol at least. You have to try those in Penang because it's famous for them. And I went into that place, and I asked the waitress there about the chendol, and she was from out of town. She didn't know the history of that particular shop, but she did know enough that she could talk about the laksa. She was telling me about the ingredients, and I couldn't quite get a handle on it. Like, I needed something to help me understand what is laksa. Like, what is the key thing that makes a laksa a laksa? I didn't know. And she was talking about something called Assam. And I heard that word clearly, but I didn't know what it was. And I got the impression that Assam was important. So I stopped her and kind of asked her some follow-up questions, like, this Assam, like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And she was trying to explain it to me, and then she said it's like tamarind. And I was like, oh, so Assam is tamarind. And they had a newspaper article there about the restaurant that described the dish that they serve, and they called it sour Assam. And in reading the article, I found out that there's two basic types of laksa, at least according to the article. One is a Assam-based, like sour Assam, and the other one is a coconut broth-based one. And I guess they made the sour Assam one. And according to the article, it takes them about 5 hours to cook the Assam broth. And it was really good. It had a very sharp, sour, tangy flavor, but not unpleasantly sour. It was like a good sour flavoring. So I liked it a lot. It had rice noodles and onions and all kinds of veggies, and based on the Assam or tamarind, mint on the top, and a whole bunch of stuff, all kinds of ingredients. So I had that. And I wasn't planning on going to Penang Road at all, but I spent a lot of time there, shot a lot of video there, shot some YouTube shorts, or 1 or 2, no 3 maybe when I was there, a lot. And then I walked from there to Little India, and I went to the Sri Maha Mariamman temple. It was closed, but I could see the outside of it. I could get some video of the tower, very ornate towers, on these Hindu temples with all the statues of the various gods. And then I went into Little India and I got some samosas, and I got masala tea to go, but it was really good masala tea. It was quite busy in Little India. Certain areas were quite busy, a lot of fun. And then I thought, since I'd been to the Hindu temple, which is on the Street of Harmony, I thought I might as well just keep walking along the road, and maybe I can visit all of the other temples and mosques and churches on the Street of Harmony. Because the point of this street is that it has 4 major houses of worship. There's the St. George's Anglican Church at one end, then the Goddess of Mercy Taoist Buddhist temple, the Sri Maha Mariamman Hindu temple, and then the Kapitan Keling Mosque, which is the oldest mosque in all of Penang. And there's actually a second very famous mosque on there as well. So in fact, there's kind of like 5 big houses of worship there, 2 mosques, a Christian church, a Hindu temple, and a Buddhist temple. And all of them have a history, dating back to the early 19th century, I believe. 18th? I think maybe early 19th century. No, 18th. They're old. They're all 200 plus years old. And it was good timing on my part, because the Goddess of Mercy Buddhist temple was having a special day. I spoke to someone there, and he explained that on the 1st and the 15th day of the lunar month, they have special days where a lot more people come to make offerings, perform a ceremony, ask for favors, and gain luck and merit. And on those days, there is a greater amount of charity, and a lot of the local street people, the homeless people, the poor people will come to that temple and wait for people to show up with donations of food and money. And I saw quite a few, dozens of them, sitting underneath the trees and sitting around the temple. And they added a certain interest to the whole experience. But there were lots of people there, lots of people burning incense, going in and out of the temple, bowing 3 times at all the various shrines, lighting the incense. And they have 3 furnaces set up. And at the furnaces, you can burn ghost money, ghost houses, ghost cars, anything made of paper that represents a real object. You can burn a paper representation of it, and that will send it into the afterlife so that their ancestors will have these items. That's how it was explained to me long ago, and then they gain merit for doing this. So you can go to these furnaces and watch everything burning, and people also, as part of the ceremony, they will purchase these immense incense sticks. They can be 5 or 6 feet high, as thick around as a small tree, very bright and very colorful with intricate carvings all over them. You buy one of these giant incense sticks and mount it in a special area, and then you light it at the top, and then it burns all day long, until it burns all the way down. And that's another thing you can do at a Buddhist temple to gain merit. So all that was going on, smoke everywhere, smoke from all the incense, from the stoves, from the furnaces. Yeah, all my clothing smelled of smoke while I was there. And while I was there, I was doing filming using the Insta360 One X3 camera. From time to time, there would be this rush of activity. All of the homeless people that were sitting in the shade underneath all the trees, they would all suddenly leap to their feet and all go rushing in one direction. And I eventually figured out that every time that happened, it was because some local person, family, or local charity would drive their car along the street and park right outside of the temple, and then they would pop open the trunk or the back of the hatch of their vehicle, and then they would have food back there to distribute to the homeless people. And that's what they were all waiting for. Some of them brought tables, and they would actually put the table out, and then when all the homeless people came rushing towards them, they would organize them into a lineup, and then they would arrange all of their charity donations, all of the food they'd prepared in individual packages. They would prepare it all, get it all ready, and then they would hand it out one at a time to these people, as they came through the lineup. And I saw that happen, I think, 3 times while I was there. And I got the impression that the homeless people were kind of stockpiling it for the whole week. That it wasn't just, food for today. They were going to stay there all day and get as many of these meals as they could. And then they were collecting them. And then they would have 1 meal today and then have 3 or 4 meals to last them throughout the week or something like that. But yeah, they were there to get as many of these as they could. Yeah, really interesting bunch of people when you walk around. They're homeless, living on the street, so they're all in variety, different types of clothing. Some of them not exactly decent. There was one funny moment where I was closer to the actual entrance to the inner part of the temple. I didn't go into the temple myself. I stayed on the outside. But there's sort of a cement lip along the front where the doors are. You have to kind of step over it. And a group of these homeless people were all sitting on that cement ledge, on the outside. And at one point, one of the caretakers of the temple, one of these men that's cleaning the place and organizing it and then helping all the visitors and things like that, he came up and he was sort of not yelling, but he was speaking loudly to a woman that was sitting on the steps, and his voice had this very recognizable tone of exasperation. He wasn't angry or upset, but he was kind of just exasperated. It's like, oh, come on. Because he knew these people by name, probably. He'd seen them all before. This was a usual thing for him. These same homeless people come every week or every month, however often this occurs. And it turns out that this one woman who was sitting there was fairly overweight. She was a large woman, and her clothing didn't exactly fit her that well. And in particular, she was wearing these baggy pants, and these pants had pretty much fallen off. They had slipped off of much of her hips and her lower thighs. So she wasn't exactly decently dressed for a Buddhist temple setting. And this caretaker from the temple, he kind of walked around the corner and he's scanning the area. He was sort of collecting the incense if it got overwhelming, like there was too much incense in the shrines. He would gather it up, armfuls of it, and carry it over to the furnaces and burn it there. So he's scanning it and he saw this woman sitting there, kind of half nude. And then he was sort of like, I don't know what her name was, her name, but he knew her name and called out her name and said, oh, now come on, is this proper behavior? Is this how we want to dress at the temple on this special day? Is this really, he was so exasperated. It's like, oh, come on, can we please just pull up your pants? Can we get a little more decent? I mean, you know better, don't you? You know better than to be sitting there looking like that. I mean, come on, And this woman got up and pulled up her pants and sat back down. But that was an interesting little, human moment at the temple while I was there. And here's the road ahead of me right now. We've left a lot of the dramatic scenery was around, sort of between Georgetown, like Penang and Ipoh, kind of around the Ipoh area. And we've left that area, and it's getting a little bit flatter, a little bit more ordinary, the scenery, but it's still a beautiful day. So I'm enjoying having my front seat. Continuing with my story from yesterday, I left from the Goddess of Mercy temple. Oh, the one thing I didn't mention though is that I think the day I was there was also special because the birthday, Guan Yin, the Goddess of Mercy, Guan Yin's birthday was coming up, I believe, on Friday. So a lot of more people were coming to the temple, probably preparing for that, to the bigger festival coming up, or the bigger, celebration, Guan Yin's birthday. And from there, what I wanted to do was walk down the main street of Little India. Pasar Street, I think, is the main street. It runs, I think, east to west, and then other streets cross it, King and Queen Street. So sort of King, Queen, and Pasar make up the heart of Little India, I think. So I wanted to continue my final day tour, walking along that street from one end to the other. It was quite a bit more challenging for me because I was filming video for YouTube, and in Little India they like to play music, loud music everywhere. The jewelry shops, the coffee shops, or like the eateries, everywhere they had speakers set up playing like loud, Hindi style, Bollywood style music, and those will also all get hit with copyright strikes. So I kept my camera running the whole time as I walked from one end of, oh look, 2 airline buses. They're flashing their lights at my airline bus. I was still running the camera, but I was very aware that I was recording all this music and I wouldn't be able to use the video anyway, or I'd have to mute it if I wanted to put it on YouTube. And I walked the entire road, all the way to the beginning of Pasar, all the way down to the end. And I did some narration from time to time, talking about what I was thinking about or what I was looking at. And then I got to the very bottom of Pasar, and I had the camera on the selfie stick, a long stick. I pulled it in, and I hit the stop recording button. But instead of stopping recording, the camera started to record. Which means that that entire walk on Pasar, all of that video that I thought I was capturing, the camera wasn't running for the entire time. And that's a little bit of a trick with this 360 camera, because the way it works, it sits away from your body on a horizontal plane. Like my GoPro right now is facing me. I can see the screen, I can see it's recording, the flashing red light is there. I can see the record light, but the 360 camera is lying flat. The lens is facing up and down, and the screen is facing up for the most part. So in fact, it's easier to make a mistake. You think you hit the record button, but then it didn't take. Like sometimes you hit the button and you don't press it down firmly enough, and you think it's recording, but it turns out. So that whole trip along Pasar, I'd recorded none of it. But being a professional, I did it a second time. I got all the way down to the bottom of Pasar, and I thought, well, Little India is a big part of Georgetown. I want some of this on video. So I definitely started recording. I made sure it was recording this time, and I turned around and I walked all the way back up Pasar, the whole distance. But that turned out to be okay, because on the trip going up, that's when I found the masala tea place. Coming down, I hadn't seen any masala tea anywhere, and I had my heart set on getting some. So, yeah, making a mistake with the recording at least allowed me to get some masala tea. So I walked all the way back up. I was all the way back at the Goddess of Mercy temple where I'd started. And then I turned, and it also turned out good as well, because by redoing that whole walk, I ended up walking in a different direction, and that took me right past the Kapitan Kelig or Kelling Mosque. And that meant I saw I didn't go to St. George's Anglican Church, but that's because I went there twice already, or 3 times. I have it in other videos. I didn't really need to see it again. So I just went to the Buddhist temple, the Hindu temple, and then the mosque. the major mosque there. I didn't go inside the mosque because I always get the feeling at a mosque that they don't want me to go inside, and that makes sense. It's not that a Buddhist temple is very open. It's very open to the community and to visitors. It's very social. You can wander around, go into the temple, as long as you're, polite about it. You can take pictures and shoot a little bit of video if you want to. Just use common sense. But at a mosque, people go there at prayer time, and other than prayer time, there isn't a lot going on. And when the gates were open, I could go onto the grounds of the mosque and I could see the building. Very beautiful building, and also a tower. There's like a minaret tower with stairs going up to the top right there on the front lawn. That was a very beautiful tower. So I got to see the tower and the mosque. But then as you come into the entrance, there's a sign that says, "The visitor center over here is open to visitors." So it felt like a hint. It's like, okay, we welcome visitors, but we want visitors to go to the visitor center. All things being equal, this is not a tourist attraction. So please understand, I don't think they really wanted tourists with their GoPros, traipsing in and out of the mosque, and fair enough. But anyway, I could be misinterpreting all the signals, but when I visit a mosque, in general, it feels like it's best not to go inside the interior of the mosque. Just stay on the outside. You can film the exterior. And if they have an actual visitor center and signs telling you that's where visitors should go, that's what you do. But of course, the visitor center was closed, so there was nothing to see there anyway. Which did kind of surprise me, though, because this is was a holiday weekend, and it is the Prophet Muhammad's birthday, which you would think is a very important celebration. And yet there was nobody at the mosque. There was nothing going on there. But again, mosques have a different tone compared to, say, a Buddhist temple or a Hindu temple. If you go to a Hindu temple early in the morning to see the ceremonies there, what are they called? Puja, I think. If people are performing puja and the music playing, it's a scene. It's something to behold. A lot is going on there, and it's loud and active. But a mosque is kind of a quiet, sedate, sort of meditative place. It's a place for prayer, not for noise and dramatic pageantry. That's not what a mosque is about, in my experience. But I went to see the mosque. I was very pleased that I did that. And then finally, at the very end, I continued walking past the mosque, and that brought me to Armenia Street. And I did the full Armenia Street, starting at the very beginning with my camera running, and I walked all the way down Armenia Street. I had a bit of fun doing that. I got a coconut smoothie, which was my fifth snack. I had chendol laksa, Assam sour laksa. Then I had samosas. I had chicken samosa, vegetable samosa, and a sweet bread ball. And then I had masala tea, and snack number 5 was coconut smoothie on Armenia Street. So I think I did pretty well for myself. 2 snacks on Penang Road, and 2 snacks in Little India, and then 1 snack on Armenia Street. I didn't go into any of the restaurants or the cafe on Armenia Street. I just walked along and took in all the activity. It was a lot of fun. Families were riding around in those 3-wheeled bicycles being driven, by the guys pedaling. And then the guys pedaling the bikes, they would do double duty as photographers. They would offer to take the phone from the families, so they could take a picture of them sitting on their bicycle. One man wanted me to ride on his tricycle, particularly when he saw my camera. I sort of pointed to the camera as a reason why I didn't want to ride on a bicycle. It's like, oh, I'm just walking to take video, it's okay. And he's like, no, it's fine. You can sit here and you can take all the video you like, and I'll ride you around anywhere you want to go, and you can take video to your heart's content. And to be honest, I was tempted. Had it been earlier in the day and I had more energy, I might have done it, just to have something visually interesting to record, on video. But it was so late in the day by that point. I was exhausted. I had been walking and walking. I mean, it was like a 2-kilometer walk just to get from my Airbnb to Little India. And then now I've done all the walking throughout Georgetown, and I still had a 2-kilometer walk to get back to my Airbnb, and all the filming I had done. I was suffering. And so I just wasn't, I don't think I would have enjoyed sitting on the tricycle. And I had a bit of fun because in this area you get some of the famous Penang artwork. Like, people get maps. I think they can get a map online on their phone that tells them the exact location of the most famous pieces, the ones that were done by that artist from Lithuania. I won't try to say his name because I'll get it all wrong, but there's one guy in particular who painted all the original street art in Penang, the most famous pieces. And you can get a map to where they're all located, and everyone wants to take selfies with them. There's one with the 2 boys on a motorcycle, like on a scooter, I think, or a bicycle. I think it's 2 boys on a bicycle on Armenia Street, and everybody likes to pose there and do something dramatic with these 2 boys on the bicycle and have their picture taken. And I stood there for a little while with my camera, recording video of other people taking selfies with the artwork. And then that was pretty much the end of my last experience in Penang and the last of the video that I was going to shoot. I walked down to Beach Street, went around the corner to get away from the noise and the music, and I was sitting in front of one of the bigger, more dramatic clan houses right on Beach Street. It sort of has one entrance on Beach and another entrance on Armenia Street. It's a beautiful clan house, and I sat there outside the fence and I recorded a conclusion to my YouTube video. But even though I was completely done with my experience, I had this other idea. I thought I should shoot a 360 video, like a true virtual reality walking tour of this whole area. So I set up my 360 camera with a fresh battery to make sure it had all the power, and I had enough memory on the memory card, because I have to do this in one shot. I can't do it in separate clips and combine it. It has to be one continuous video for it to work. So my idea was to hold the selfie stick high above my head to record 360 video of everything around me, and then I was going to re-walk everywhere I'd already walked. So I plotted out a route to take me up Chulia Street, the whole way up Chulia Street, along the Street of Harmony, into Little India at Pasar Street, walk all the way down Pasar Street, maybe a detour into Queen and King, come all the way down Pasar to Beach, cross over along Beach to Armenian Street, and then all the way up Armenian Street. And I wanted to record that entire walk as a continuous, uncut 360 video. So I set off, and I was doing it, and it's a bit of an awkward situation too, because you're shooting this 360 video and it's high above your head, but you can't really see what the camera is doing. You just have to go on faith that it's still up there recording, because if you pull it down to check on it, you see all that in the final video. So I just sort of left it up there, and I completed the whole walk up until a certain point when I was approaching, I know what it was. I found an alleyway where there was another famous piece of art by the Lithuanian. This was I think 2 boys on a scooter, and I decided to sit, because there's a physical scooter there with the painting behind it. So I thought, well, I might as well take my own selfie, and I sat down on the scooter and I held the camera in front of me to get kind of a selfie view of me sitting on the scooter with this famous painting. And then I got up to walk away, and I noticed that the flashing red light on the camera wasn't going. back on the GoPro. Not because I fixed the battery. That battery is unfixable. It's now heading for the recycling battery center, wherever that is in this world. But I have a little pair of, I don't have needle nose pliers, but I have tweezers. And I keep these tweezers inside my camera kit, along with all my GoPro gear, because I've had to dig batteries out of GoPros for so long. I had to do this back in the days when I used the GoPro Hero 7, like almost non-stop, because the tabs on the Hero 7 batteries, they tore off really easily. So like half my batteries had no tabs on them, and the only way to get the batteries out, they were still usable, the batteries, but you just couldn't get them out of the camera anymore. But I would use these tweezers to kind of pry them out. You can just get a little hook on the edge of the battery and just slowly work it out. But I remembered I had these, and I thought, oh, maybe I can use these to get a grip on that battery and pull it out of the Hero 9, and it worked. So I have a new battery in there. I still have one regular battery that isn't 100% swollen. It still fits, and I can get it out again. And I have one more, like a brand new battery, one of the white Enduro batteries. I'm hoping that the new ones don't swell up as badly as the old blue ones do. Anyway, with that little technology delay, once again, I can end this video about an hour outside of Kuala Lumpur, arriving shortly. Amazing bus ride. All right, and I'll see you in the next video from the exciting capital city of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur.